Yes, ma'am. Good evening. You can continue.
So am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay. So yesterday, what did we discussed? We'll have a recap of that, and we can move towards OOPS concept today. So what all we have seen yesterday? I think we have seen discussed list comprehension, right? List comprehension, and we have discussed file handling, yes, and we have discussed exception. Okay, so today we are going to start with a very new topic called OOPS. Okay, so object-oriented programming in Python. See, because see, first initially we were learning what is variable, what is function, what is loop, what is conditional statement. So after learning all those things, what did we do? We kept inside the functions. So now, what you're going to learn in the sense, you're going to learn that how to use all these concepts inside the class, how to keep inside the class. So as I told in Python, everything is an object which will come under class. So we're going to see that one by one today. Okay, let me share this. See, oops is like it's not as that much easy. Maybe if you focus, you will find it very easy. Otherwise, maybe if you miss something, you will get confused. So I request every one of you to follow from the beginning. Okay. So today we're going to see about what is object-oriented programming and what is class, what is object, and what is methods, what is attribute, and inheritance in Python, and what is polymorphism and encapsulation and abstraction. So under this, like if I take class, we will be learning what is object. Under object, every object will have certain attributes and behavior. I'll tell you what is that. So inside each and every topic, we will be like moving little bit depth, and we will be learning what is what exactly. Clear? So before that, generally you have to understand what is oops, what is class, and what is object, and all those things. So I'll give you some real-time example, and then we can move towards the implementation. Okay. Okay, generally like object-oriented programming in Python. So what is that? So they're telling Python is an object-oriented language like other general-purpose programming language. So here, the concept of OOPS, so we call it as OOPS. So the concept of OOPS in Python focuses on creating objects. And again, here we are making the reusable groups. Clear? So again, see, we have learned how to define a function. And also I told you the advantage of function, why we are going for function. So instead of writing each and every time for some code, if you write once, you can make use of that multiple times, or you can reuse that code. That is functions, right? So that functions, when you are trying to keep it inside the class, that will be different, a little bit different. I'll tell you what is what. Okay. So here we are going to take functions and all the concepts and keep it inside class. Why? Because in Python, everything is an object. So we have to focus on the class, how to create a class, what is class, and all those things a little bit. Okay. So the concept of object-oriented programming in Python focuses on creating objects and making reusable codes. And they are telling a world is full of objects. Yes or no? For example, if I am an employee, as an employee, I will be like I will need some objects like fan or AC or laptop, mobile phone. Yes or no? So we will be needed certain objects. Okay, and for example, if I am an object, I need. I'm working in a company and I'm an employee. If I am an object, so I will be having certain attributes and methods. So every object will have certain attributes and methods. So what is attribute and what is methods? For example, now I said I am an object, right? I'm an employee and I'm an object. Imagine that I'm an employee and I'm an object. My name, address, or phone number, my designation, everything is attribute, which is that my data. Some information about me is attribute. For example, if you take one more object, if you take car or mobile phone, its model, its size, RAM, speed. If you take all those things, the specification will be attribute, information about that object. Okay, so that is attribute. And what is behavior? If you take behavior, For example, I'm an object, right? I'm an employee. So my attributes, I told my name, address, phone number, and my designation, my height, weight, everything will be attribute. And the behavior will be I'm talking, I'm walking, then I'm working, then I'm speaking, then or if I whatever the activities I'm doing is behavior. Okay, so every object will have certain attributes and certain behavior. Okay, my video is not visible. Now it's visible, Dhanlakshmi. Some other example, can you give me? Do you understand like exactly if we have some object, every object will have certain attribute and methods. So information about that object is attribute and the behavior, how it should behave, that is behavior. Okay, the activities which the object will do is behavior. How can we take it to the implementation, or when I'm implementing something, how can I relate it to that? For example, attribute is nothing but we are telling it is a variable. Variable. So variable is where we used to store the data, right? So that is variable. Attribute is nothing but variable. What about behavior? Behavior is nothing but it is a method. Method means which is already we have seen functions. Yes. See, variable already you know what is variable. We used to store the data. That variable only we are calling it as attribute inside the OOPS concept. And behavior is nothing but method. Method is nothing but functions. Already you have defined the function. You know how to call it, right? So when that function comes inside class, then that function will be called as method. So what I'm trying to do now, I'll be creating a class first of all. What is class actually? What is class? So these are the major principles of OOPS. You're going to see what is class, object, method, inheritance, polymorphism, encapsulation, abstraction. Okay. Okay, what is class? So if I say what is class, then you will understand how your object will be. Then what is attribute and method or behavior, you will understand. See, they're telling class is a collection of objects, or we can say a user-defined type. Okay. A class holds both the methods and attributes of the object. Okay, fine. I think they've given the same example. If you have an employee class, so it should contain an attribute and method. Okay, so email ID, name, age, salary will be the attribute. Method is what that employee should do, how he should work. That is method, his behavior. Clear? Let me tell you, give you one more example. What is class? Okay, so for example, if I'm going to develop a mobile, or I'm going to create or manufacture some mobile, or let me take a Samsung. Okay, so how will you deploy? How will you make that mobile actually initially? First of all, you should have that blueprint, right? The design of that mobile. Only when you have the design of that mobile, the manufacturer department will see that design and they will design the mobile according to that. Yes or no? So that design, that blueprint is class. So if I have one class, that is one design, based on that one design, I can create multiple mobiles. Yes or no? So based on one design, I can create multiple objects. Yes or no? Am I right? If you have blueprint and design for one Samsung model, based on that design, I can create multiple objects, which is called collection of objects. I can create multiple mobiles. So class is nothing but the design or blueprint of the object. So based on the, so inside the class, you can have multiple objects. Yes or no? And each object, they are telling it will have certain attributes and method. Maybe how can you relate it to mobile? If I say attribute, the model name, the RAM size, the speed of the mobile, that will be the attribute. And what about the methods? This mobile is used for chatting or talking, or it is used for some purpose, right? So how it is being used, that is behavior, which is nothing but method. Are you clear with attribute methods? Attribute is nothing but variables, method is nothing but functions. If you're clear with this only, I can move to the implementation, then you will understand. Otherwise, you will get confused why we are having multiple objects inside the class and all those things. Yes or no? Please give me the confirmation. Are you clear with what is class and what is object, and each object will have certain attributes and methods, and also I've explained what is attribute and what is methods. Clear? Okay, I'm getting a lot of yes. That's good. Great. Now hold. Okay, so here object is known as instantiation of a class. Okay, so they're telling, for example, if you have motorbike as one class, based on one bike model, I can create multiple. See, I have multiple models. So one, if I take bike as a class, I can have multiple models as an object. BMW, Royal Enfield, Suzuki, yes or no? But this is a class and object. One more example they have given. And methods, as I mentioned already, method is nothing but it is exactly how you define function. Okay, so method is a function inside the class. I'll tell you how to define all those things. Okay, so inheritance, I'll come back after that. After creating what is class, what is object, we'll work on that. We'll see few implementation by creating the class, object, and all those things. And then I will move to what is inheritance, fallback system one by one. Before that, we have a lot of things to go through. So let me move the implementation. Is everybody ready with the collab? Good. Okay, let me start the implementation. Okay, see for example, let me tell you, let us create a class, okay? Now, for example, I am a programmer, okay? So for example, if I'm a programmer, definitely I need an object, or for example, if I'm taking class as a computer or laptop, what will be my variables or attributes? We'll see. We'll work on that. Okay. For example, let me create a class. First of all, class, and my class name is computer, and you have to end it with the colon. Okay, and indentation also should be maintained for this also. Clear? So now what I'm going to do now, for every class, you have to create an object. For example, I'm going to create comp1 object. Okay, so this is the object. This is how you have to create, and I'm going to assign the class to that. Class name is what? Computer. So I'm going to assign this class name to the object comp1. So object is nothing but referring the class. Class is nothing but assigned to the object. So whenever you're dealing with this class, you have to work on that object. Okay. So as I told, every object have certain attributes and methods. We'll see how to define a method and how to deal with the attributes. So first, initially, let me define a method called. Method is nothing but functions. So functions inside class will be called as method. I'm going to create a method called config, and here I'm going to give self. Does anybody know what is self? Why I'm defining? Actually, self will come automatically when you're typing a code in some tool. No, it will suggest a code, right? So self will come automatically. But why we are using self here? Any idea? What is the purpose of using self? Yes, Anshu Bhutani. Yes, this class we have created, right? This computer bracket is nothing but constructor. Maybe the people whoever is working in C, Java, you will understand. It's a type of constructor. Okay, I'll tell you what is constructor and why it is used. See, constructor in the sense, whatever the data we are giving, no, so all the size will be maintained by this constructor called computer. This is class, okay? So I'm going to mention all the data inside this bracket. Let us come to that later. But this is like we used to call it as constructor. Okay, we'll see one by one. As of now, I am dealing with class and object only. Later, we'll go one by one. What is constructor? What is class variables, instance variable? We'll go one by one. Yeah. So what the question I asked, what is self? What self is doing? See, self is very simple, nothing but, let me tell you, for example, if I'm printing this, yeah, self also I'll talk it separately. Okay, don't worry. I'll explain briefly self also, because today and tomorrow, maybe today come fully and tomorrow half of the session we are going to focus on oops. Then only we are moving to the library part. Okay. So now let me take some configuration of the computer. Let me take a Intel i5 core, and then I'm going to take the size 16 GB RAM. Then let me take. I'm just giving some information configuration about that computer. Okay, so 1T. So now what happened in the sense? Okay, so generally when we take, like for example, generally if I take x equal to 8, okay, then if I print and get type of x, let me have this also, and I'll tell you what I'm doing here. And now I'm taking a print type of this object comp1 I'm taking. Look at the answer we have. See, for this one, I'm defining some integer and I'm getting the type. It is telling class int. So from the beginning, when you check type of all the data, whether it is integer or float or list or string, it will give you class integer, class float, class list, class str. Have you noticed that? So class which is being, we are using it from the beginning. When we started Python, from that day we are using it class, but we don't know. Why we are getting class integer? It is not like that. I have defined inside the class, so I'm getting it. It's not like that. Even if I give here, it will give you the same thing. It is telling you class int. Why? Because as I said, in Python, everything is an object. So this int is nothing but the built-in class or built-in function under this class name. Clear? So int is a built-in thing, and here this computer is user-defined. That's the difference we have. Clear? So in Python, everything is an object which comes under the class. That's what I'm trying to mention. And here it is telling, and when I'm checking the type of the object called comp1, it is telling the type. It is because this object belongs to the class computer. That's why it is telling class computer. Okay. And what is this main? Main is nothing but it is telling that you are working on this computer model. Currently, I'm into that computer module. Okay. That's why it is telling that you are into the main module. I mean, if the class is computer, it is telling that now you are inside the computer class computer. That's why it is telling that you are into the main module. That is the purpose it is telling. Clear? Working on this computer model. Currently, I'm in. Okay. So now let us take the same code and let me try to call that method inside the class. Let me remove this type and all. Okay. So now how can you call this method? See, as of now, I didn't define attributes, variables. I'm not doing anything. I've created class. I've created object for the class. Then I have defined the method inside the class. Okay. Now I'm going to call this method. How can you call? Can I call like this? Usually we call like this. Yes or no? But it is telling that name config is not defined. It's giving the error. Why is it so? Because see, you're telling it is config, but where it is? Which method? Because this method function is nothing but config function, which is nothing but method. Config method is inside the class computer. I cannot call it as it is. If I say hey walk, whom you're telling hey walk? Hey Banu walk or hey Mr. Arun walk. You have to tell that in that way, right? So you have to mention it with the class name. So if I'm telling computer.config, let us see. And again, it is telling that config missing one required positional argument self. So here I think you will get to know more about self. See, self is nothing but, for example, here it is asking us to mention, okay, you're referring this class and you're telling this method, but which object that class belongs to? Because as I told, one class will have multiple objects. For example, as of now, luckily we have only one object. What if I have 10 objects? Com2, com3, com4, com5. What if I have more than 10 objects inside this class? So you have to mention the object. If you're referring this class, if you're calling this method, for which object you're doing this. So I have to mention here comp1. So now it will work. So now see when I mentioned this object, now it is going and printing whatever we have kept inside that config method. Clear? And how does self is taking place here? See, self is nothing but whatever the object. For example, Now, what is this comp1 object is holding? The class called computer. Okay, so now this object one created, which belongs to the class computer. Now, this comp1 object, as I told, every object will have attributes and methods. As of now, I don't have attributes. I have only the method called config. Okay, so if I'm dealing with this object, which means I'm dealing with this method. So whenever you're dealing with this object, it will just go by default. It will work with this config method, which by itself, the object. Now, if you mention, see, if I'm mentioning object only, it is going and printing this one. So where we have the connection between the self and object. Okay, so this object is nothing but it is mentioning the self itself, which it's belong to, attributes and methods. Clear? That's why we are mentioning self here. We'll have a lot of examples with self. As of now, understand why we are having self, because to link with the object. Whenever I say comp1, now my comp1 will be having this method config, which itself it automatically go and fetch whatever the information I've kept inside this config method. That is called self. Clear? If you want, you can create one more object. Let me create one more object. And again, you have to, if you're trying to call this method with another object, again, you have to mention computer.config, then comp2. Now it will print twice. Clear? Because one class can have multiple objects. Clear with that? Let me know if you have any doubts. Yes, Anshu, I'll come with that. Actually, you have to define like that only. You have to call it with the object only, but this is a very basic one. I'll come back to that. See, actually, I told you one thing. Now we have created the class. Then I've created object, multiple objects for that single class. Then I've defined some method for that class. Then finally, when I'm trying to call that method or dealing with that method, so how did I do it? I was checking the class name. Then I was mentioning the method while calling the method. Then I passed the object as an argument over here. But actually, in the real time, we don't write like this. Then how can we write? Very simple. You can directly dig with the objects, because already your object is assigned with the computer bracket. Yes or no? Computer class, a constructor. Already my object is ready with the class computer. Look at here, line number 6 and 7. So you don't have to separately mention call computer.config, then passing the object. So how can we do it now? You can directly give like this comp1.config. But this also will work. See, it's printing one more time. Let me give the space so that you will understand. See, so 9 and 10 for that I'm having here. See, like this way also you can call it. Let me give one more object for second object also and call it. Got it? Actually, this is how the line number 12 and 13, right? This is how we use it in the real time. So why did I explain line number 9 and 10 in the sense to understand? So you have to understand that we are using the class. Then inside the class we are calling that method instance, and we are only when you mention the object. Only before, when I was not mentioning the object as an argument, it was not working. I got error. So you have to understand that we have to pass the object as an argument, which means object is playing an important role over here. That's why I explained line number 9 and 10. But actually, the actual is you have to go with line number 12 and 13. Clear? So this is how you can call the method using the object. Any doubts so far? So as of now, I told you how to create a class, how to create an object and method, and how to call it. That's it. Let me know if you have any doubt. I'll clarify. And yes, self is actually compulsory. Why? Because see, self is like whenever you're dealing with the object, definitely self is important. Okay. Because whenever I'm dealing with attributes, that is variable. For example, if I'm taking car, or if I'm taking car as a class, if I wanted to change or if I wanted to define variables for that class car, like car mileage, car speed, car company, all those are variables, details of those car, right? So for defining those variables or details about that car, definitely I need a attribute or attribute, right? So whenever you're dealing with attribute or variable, it should connect with the object. Yes, what whenever I'm defining the method or attribute inside the class, it should connect with the object. So when you want that to be in connection, self is compulsory. Clear, Anshu? Hold on. Okay, are you clear? Shall I actually next we're going to see about super method, which is nothing but init. I'll tell you how. See, when I explain init, you will understand more about self. See, further when we are moving one by one, you will get more clarity towards whatever we have seen so far. Okay, because we'll have some continuity. Yes, Mahesh, you have mentioned whether we have to give self. Yeah, that's what I'm going to explain now. Whether we have to give self with all the methods defined inside the class. Yes, you have to give it. I'll tell you how. Okay. Okay. Hope my screen is visible. Okay, now we'll just move towards init. What is init? We used to call that as a super method or magic method in the OOPS concept. We'll see how init is taking place. Maybe let me take the same code. Okay, let me take the same code. So let me remove all these things which I have here. Okay. Okay. So now already we have this config method. Okay, fine. See, for example, now let me take, see now inside the class, I have only created the method. Now we deal with attributes. Attributes. What is the attribute of computer? Can anyone tell me? Of course, CPU, RAM, yes or no? So now I'm going to take a special method which is nothing but init. I'll tell you why you have to deal it with init. First of all, I'll tell you how to define. So you can just go with define. So whenever I say super method or magic method, you have to use double underscore before and after. And here definitely self should take place. Because init is nothing, is nothing but a built-in thing again, which connects with the object. Whenever we see, very simple. Here I'm going to define the attribute and this is method. And every object I told, every object will have certain attribute and method. So whenever these both the attribute and method should connect with the object, because compulsory every object will have some attribute and behavior. That is nothing but attribute and methods, variable and functions or variable and methods, right? So whenever you wanted to connect with that, because if I say comp1, for that comp1, I'm defining an attribute and behavior, that is variable and method. So it should connect automatically only when you give self. So it will understand. If you give self, it understands that it itself automatically should connect with the object. And whenever you deal with the object or whenever you're accessing the variable or calling the method, you should go only through the object. That's why we are mentioning self. Okay. Now, let me try it and see how this init is working. So let me print something like init and see what is happening. Okay. So if I run this code, look at here. Let me run it and look at the output. Look at the output. Hold on. Okay. So what answer I'm getting here? I have defined a method init. Okay, maybe inside that init only I'm going to mention attribute, that is variable. I'll come back to that later. But look at this, how it is working. I mentioned init, then I mentioned self. Inside that init method, I have given print in init. How in my outcome it has printed twice? Because for object comp1, it has printed one time in init, and for object comp2, it has printed one more time in init, which means by default, it is working for both the objects. Yes or no? How? Because I've mentioned the self. Because of that self, it is automatically connecting with the object, and whenever I am dealing with that object, it is automatically working out. Clear, guys? Okay, hold on. Okay, good. Okay, see, init is nothing but here actually inside this init method, I should mention the attribute, which is nothing but variable of that object. If object is a employee, I have to mention his name, email ID, phone number. That is attribute, details about him, variable. Actually, I should mention that only inside the init method, but I'm telling how the init is working here. That's why I didn't assign any variable over here. Before that, I wanted to show how it is working, how this init is working. See now, inside this init method, I've printed some content right in init. I've just created two objects and I've just assigned the class. And see, when I see the this last two output is related to the line number 13 and 14. Okay, forget about this. Let me comment this and look at the outcome now. So now what is happening in the sense? I'm giving object 1, comp1 and object 2, comp2, and I've assigned the class. And if I run this, what it is happening? By default, it is going and accessing whatever I've kept inside this init. Why? How it is accessing? See, before I was the method was working. Why? Because I've called this method. Can you see? By using that object, I've called that method. But here, without mentioning anything, when I give the object and the class name, automatically it is working. How? Because of the self I have given here. So self, which is nothing but automatically connecting or working with the object, and whatever you're keeping inside this init method, it will work. That is self and init method, super method. Okay. Now let's see what we can do next. Okay, so I told that. Okay, now we'll go with the attributes. So now you saw how to define a class, how to define an object for a class, and you can create multiple objects for one class. We saw that, and we saw what is constructor. That computer, this bracket is a constructor. So that here also actually you can pass some data. Like for example, you can give I5, and here also you can pass. For example, let me take the attributes. Let me take the attribute. So what are the attribute I need for computer? Let me take a CPU. Okay, but here you have to mention which type of variable you are taking and assigning the data. So I'm dealing with CPU and RAM. And again, see, here I've mentioned two attributes. That is nothing but two variable. But I have just passed with the self. Okay, but again, you have to give like the self dot CPU equal to CPU. And then only this object will again work with the self will work with the object, and object exactly will fetch those attributes or variables which we are giving. Okay, then again I'm giving self dot RAM equal to RAM. Okay, so now what happens? Now both the object comp1 and comp2 now have two variables. Yes or no? Even comp1 also have two attributes, that is nothing but two variable called CPU and RAM. And even comp2 also have now two attribute variable, nothing but CPU and RAM. So now both the objects having two attributes, CPU RAM, CPU RAM. Now how can you assign the data to this variable? Where can we give it? Any idea? No, init is different, constructor is different, Sunanda, right? Constructor is actually it decides how many size actually for the data is required. See, the size of your data depends on the variable and how much data the variable is holding. So how much size it should allocate. Everything the constructor will design. Init is different. Yes, I think someone have told correctly. You have to give the data inside the bracket. Yes, Sheetal correct. Nirmal also correct. Inside the class, you have to give it. Here, I have to give it. Where is my class name? Computer, which is already assigned to the object. So here, I can give the data. What is CPU? Let me take some CPU like this and RAM 16. And even for object 2, you can give. Let me take some object called, CPU. Ryzen 3, and let me take the RAM as, okay, 8, something like that. So let me run it and see. Okay, it is not working. I'm just getting the answer for this one. Okay, now let me comment this and see. Okay, nothing is happening. So what mistake I've made here? Maybe let it enable this config also. See, because we have created an object, I told every object will have certain attribute and method. I told what attribute should have. That is variable. We have mentioned CPU and RAM, and also we have passed the data in the class. But you also have to tell how it should behave, right? Which is nothing but method. Okay. So here also you have to mention it. So how can I mention here? Let me take. So this is the method config which I've created is an old one. Now we have to create the method for such attribute. If the attribute is like this, how it should do or how it should behave, you should connect your method also to the attribute. So now let me take configures, and here you have to pass CPU, comma, RAM. Let me see it is working or not. Again, I'm getting syntax error. Where I'm getting syntax error? Here, in this line. Again, we have made a mistake over here. What mistake? Because we forgot to pass self. If you're not giving self, again, it will not connect to the object. That's why we're getting an error. For example, let me give comma and run it and see. Okay, before syntax error, why I got in the sense because I forgot the comma here. But after giving the comma, even again, I'm getting a error stating that name CPU is not defined. See, it is telling that when the object is working, it is telling I don't find such CPU. Why? Because I didn't give self. Only when you give the self, the object, it will connect to the object, right? So you have to give self.cpu again and self.ram again. Now I think it will work. See, we are getting the answer. Clear? Let me know if you have any doubt. If you're clear till here, we can proceed so that you will understand more. Because from here, you are going to see more concepts, which again dealing with class, object, attribute, methods, self. Again, init, selfie, whatever you have seen so far will continue till end. Whatever the concepts and hoops we are learning. Clear? Okay. I'm getting thumbs up. Fine. Now let's move. And now we'll discuss a bit more about what is constructor. Okay. Very simple. Already I've told you what is constructor. But again, I'll explain a bit more. So now again, let me take a class and give computer. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to create two objects, which is nothing but C1 equal to, then I'm going to create a constructor here, then C2 equal to, now I have two objects. See, whenever I create an object, how the storage will happen actually. For example, if this is, I think every data Whatever the data we are giving or using, I think in Python it is storing in a memory called heap memory, heap area. Okay, so in that heap area, if I'm creating multiple objects, if I'm creating C1, it will store here. C1, C2, it will store here. C3, it will store it in a different place, but it will be in a heap area. So obviously, when I create C1, it will be here. C2 will be here. C3 will be here. So definitely you will have a different ID, yes or no? Let me check with the ID. For example, if I'm trying to get the ID of C1, then ID of C2. Okay. Okay, so why I'm getting indentation error here? Okay, because I haven't finished class here. Just have defined it. So let me give pass and see now. Okay. So we have to finish that class. If you don't have nothing to mention inside, simply give pass. It will work. See now, look at the ID. I have a different ID. Even though it is in a same class, when you create different object, it will create it a different namespace. So definitely you will have a different ID. Okay, and also every object, the size of an object. For example, if I'm having 5 objects, the size of an object depends on the number of variable and size of each variable. I'll repeat again. The size of an object depends on the number of variables and size of each variable. But who allocates size to object? Yes, that is called constructor, which is nothing but this one, computer. This is constructor, which deals with all these things. Clear? Got it? Okay. For example, let me create one attributes here. Let me create the attribute for 2 classes. See here, I'm taking init and let me take self. It will be given. And now let me take two attribute. Nothing. It's nothing but variable. So here you should not call variable. Outside of class, that is variable. When it comes to inside class, it is attribute. In the same way, outside of class, it is function. When the function comes inside the class, it is method. Be clear with that, okay? Self dot name equal to, let me take the name as Asha and self dot age and let me take it as 28. Now, what happens in the sense? Let me hide this ID. Okay, attribute error. Okay, I didn't. Okay, I've created an object with a class. I've created an attribute for the object, but I didn't access that. How can I access those attributes? For example, if I want the name, if I wanted to access it, now C1 has 2 attributes, which is nothing but name age. C2 also has 2 attributes, which is nothing but name age. If you wanted to access name or age, you have to call it, you have to mention with the object. So it is telling that computer has no attribute name. Why? Because you didn't call it with the object. As I told, every class have multiple objects. You have to mention separately. For example, you have to tell that C1, I want the name of object C1. Then I want the name of object C2. Now, okay. It is telling computer object no attribute name. Okay. Class computer self dot name equal to age. So C1 computers it should work. We restart and run it. Okay. Can anyone figure it what is happening? Name equal to is no there. A reason for pass is, for example, if you don't have anything to mention inside the class, you can give it pass. Okay. Okay, let me look at the code. Name equal to is not there. Where it is? Ah, yes, I've given a hyphen. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, see now it is working. So both the object have the same attribute name and age. So where you can call it with the object. Now see it is still Asha Asha twice. Why? Because I'm calling it with both the objects C1 and C2. Clear? And what in case if you wanted to update, for example, for C1 alone, I wanted to change the name. Is it possible? You can do it. For example, you can take C1 dot name equal to, let me take it as Nisha. Okay. And let's see what is happening. See, it will change. Look at the answer for C1 dot name. So it is changing. Clear? Clear, guys? Till here. Let me look at the chat. Yes, Lima, you have to mention the self. Otherwise, whatever the attribute and methods you're defining inside the class, it will not connect to the object. Only if you mention the self, it will connect. Okay. Now, if you're okay till here, we can move to the types of variable. What all the variables we have. Okay, so let me move to the types of variable. Okay. Okay, what are the types of variable we have? We have two variables. One is instance and one is class, or you can call it as static variable. Okay, we'll see what is that. What is instance variable and what is static variable. Okay, so let me take one example called car. We'll take car and we'll see the information about car. So I'm going to create a class called car, and here let me give init, way to define the attributes. Attributes means variable of information about that car. So let me take self dot mileage. I'm going to take mileage of that car. Let me take 10 and a company. Company of that car. Let me take it as BMW. Okay. Now, um, let me create the object for that. C1 equal to car, and let me create one more object. Okay. See now what happens in the sense. Look at the attribute of this class car. Mileage and company. See, based on the car model, different car you're choosing, this mileage and company will change for each and every car. Yes or no? Yes or no? If I'm choosing different car, definitely company will change, mileage will change. Where with respect to the class, if the attributes are changing, that is instance variable. That is instance variable. If I just go with some other class, the attribute will be changed. If I choose different, for example, if I have car one, the mileage and company will be changed. If I'm taking a different car two, the class is car two again, mileage and company will be changing. The attribute will be, or you can call it as a variable. Attribute is nothing but variable. So the variable will be changed for each and every different type of car. So whenever your attribute or variable is keep on changing based on the class or the object you're choosing, then that it is instance variable. I hope you're clear with the instance variable. Okay. Now, for example, I've created an object for the car C1, C2. For example, if I'm accessing the object C1 dot company, comma C1 dot mileage, you can get that. Maybe with the same, I'll do it for object 2, company, comma C2 dot mil. So it will work. Clear? And if you wanted to change again mileage of object 1, you wanted to change the mileage, how can you do it? C1 dot, take the object and variable of that object mileage equal to 8. How it will be changed? Clear? This is how we deal with instance variable. What is the second one? Static or class variable. See, a class variable or static, you can call it either class or static variable. When I say class variable, it will be out of the method. It will be before the method. That is immediately after the class you will have it. For example, if I define a class variable, which will be common for all the attributes, sorry, all the objects. For example, if I say, see, let me give you, if I say wheels equal to 4, every car, for example, if I have car, I have two objects. So based on one car model, you can car design, you can create multiple model of car, which is nothing but C1 and C2. Yes or no? For C1, you can have different attributes. So for C1, the mileage and company will be changed. And for C2 car also, mileage and company will be changed. Depends on the car, the instance variable will be keep on changing. But look at the class variable which I have given here. Whatever the car you're choosing, whatever the mileage or company it can be, every car has 4 wheels. This is like common to all the objects. So that is called class variable or static variable, which will be common to all the objects. Clear? So now if you just go and access here, for example, let me C1 dot wheels and C2 dot wheels. It is telling that 4 4. Now this wheels equal to 4 is nothing but class variable or static variable which is common to all the objects. But instance variable is not like that. But each object C1 and C2 will have the same attribute, but the value, the data will be changed. Depends on the object. That is instance variable. Clear? Yes, Muthu Pandit, yes. Yeah, you can give Nirmal Raj. Okay, you're telling that C1 dot wheel. Okay. See, let me take it here. It's not changing. Because it is a class variable which will be common, you cannot change it. So I've given C1 dot wheel. Okay. Wheels, it's not update. Okay, spelling mistake. Yeah, let me try it. Sorry. Hold on. Speed is not okay. Give me a minute. Okay. Thank you for waiting. Let me share the screen. Yes, Muthupan, like you're telling that whether you can update C1 with wheels. Okay. See, your question is right. If I take C1 dot wheels, it will change for object C1. But this is a class variable. Okay. So you should not access this variable with the object. You should access this with the class name, car. So now we are updating this car, and if you're trying to change the value for wheels, which it should affect or which it should change for all the objects. So how you have to give it? You have to take class name dot wheels. Now it will be changed for all the objects together. because this is a class variable. You have to access only with the class name. Got it? The instance variable is nothing but it is inside. See, it is inside that method. I mean, it is an attribute which belongs to the object. Attributes and methods belong to the object, but class variable belongs to the class. So whenever you're updating your wheel, or maybe whenever you're updating your class variable, you have to access with the class name only, so that it will reflect to all the objects. You cannot change it for a particular object. Clear, Muthu? Yes, Ansh. Okay, so this is types of variable, which is nothing but, see, the way we defining class, object, everything is same, whatever you're doing. But the thing is, whenever you're defining the attribute, we have two types of attribute. That is two types of variable. That is, which is instance. Instance is nothing but which is used to change based on the model. That is object. And class is nothing but which is static. That's static, right? So it is common for all the objects. That is class variable. Clear? And let us move towards types of methods. Now we see, for defining the attributes, we saw two types of attributes, right? Which is nothing but instance attribute, instance variable, and class variable. In the same way, we have for method also. We have instance method, and we have class method. Because you have to know how to define the methods in this way also. We have finished with the attribute, now with method. Attribute is nothing but variable. See now, before when we are discussing about types of variable, we had only two, instance separately and class and static both are same, I said. Look at the variables. Instance is one type of attribute, variable, and class and static both are same, I said. But when it comes to method, we have separately called static method. We don't include class and static both as same. So separately we have instance, class, and static. Okay, we'll see one by one what is that. Are you clear? Any doubts? Here, let me know. Okay, good. Okay, so now let us take one more example, and we'll just create a class object, and let us create some instance variable and class variable also, and then we'll see how this instance method, class method, and static method is taking place. Okay, let me take a class as students. Don't want to go with the same example. I'll take some different example. Student. And let me define the attributes first of all. Then I'll go to the, instance variable. Then I'll go to the class variable. Now I'm defining with the self. And now, students means what are the attributes we can take for students? Maybe student's name, mark, like that. But here we'll work something differently. Let me take different subjects mark. Let me take M1, M2, and M3. And here you know how to define with the self. M1 equal to M1, then self dot M2 equal to M2, then self dot M3 equal to M3. So now let us create an object for this class, which is nothing but student1. Yes, one is student1. So every, if I take students, I'll be having multiple students. That is, yes, one, yes. So object, right? If one class, for one class, I have different object. So for one class student, I will be having number of students, like student 1, 2, like that, you can take it. And you can mention as students over here. And even for one more object, yes, 2, I'm taking student 2, I'm taking students. And again, you can pass the mark for that student over here. Okay, let me take some markers. Okay, not strict, 34, 36, 78. And 3 marks I'm passing. For object 2 also, let us take the mark. 89, 32, 12. Okay, so now Let me create a, okay, now I've done with the instance variable, that is attribute we have created. Let us create one method also and keep it. Then I'll create the class variable, okay? So let us create class called average, sorry, method called average, and pass the self, don't forget. Now I'm going to return the average for all the three subjects. How can you do it? Self dot m1 plus, you have to add and divide it by 3. That is average, right? So I'm taking the average. Self dot m2 plus self dot m3, then divide by 3. This is the average it will return. Now let's see how the average is working for different objects. Let me take the average for S1, object S1. So how can I take? I can take S1 dot average, ABG method. Just telling 56. You can also get it for S2 also, na? Print S2 dot average. Okay, it is working. Now what is the next step we can do now? Let us create a class variable. Okay, now what can be the class variable for this scenario? Can anyone tell me? It should be common to all the students, common to all the objects. So what variable I can take for this scenario? If students is a class, I'll be having number of students as an object. Okay, the variable can be, attribute can be changed. Now I can deal with marks. Later I can deal with their name, ID card number, address, phone number. Instance variable will be changed. But what is a common variable I can give? I mean, which is common to all the students. That is class variable. What can I give? Any idea? Okay, very good, Limaros. Total working hours is common for, okay, common for all students. Ah, yes, Nirmal Raj, you have guessed correctly. The college name or school name. Definitely that will be same, right? If I take school. Maybe I can take the school name as, can anyone give me some school name, college name? Which school name can I give? Okay. Okay, I'm getting a lot of names. Okay, let me take Koer University. And this is my school name. Now, this school name is common for all the students, yes or no? Okay. But how can you access this school name? Yes. Student.school. Or can you call it with the object name dot student like school? Okay, you're calling it with the class name. Ah, yes, correct, Muthupandian. Yes, so you can call it with the class name. Class name dot school. Yes, very good. But what I'm going to do now here in the sense, I'm going to create a one more method, which is nothing but like info, and I'm passing my CLS, which is nothing but the class inside here, and I'm going to return this. Return dot CLS dot scope. If I'm giving this, if after giving this, if I'm going and let me comment this average, if I'm giving like this, print yes1 dot, if I'm giving info, I'm getting the university. So now what I'm telling, what I'm doing here in the sense, for every student, if you take the info, the school name will be Koir University. So where I'm creating a method and passing the class inside. Clear? Or I think if what happens if I take students.info, let us see. I'm getting type error. Let's see what is that error. Okay, it is telling that info missing one required positional argument class. What does it mean? See, when I was able to access with the object, it was working because I've defined a method as info, then passed the class, then when I was returning the class name with the class variable school. It was working, but I cannot access with the class name. Why I cannot access this info method with the class name? So what should I do now? Very simple. You have to make this method, which is nothing but this info method, you have to make it as a class method. Then only when I access this info with the class, it will work. See, here we are not talking about class variable. I'm talking about how to create a class method. So for that only I've defined the class method. I mean, I've defined the method here, and I'm telling how you should convert this method into a class method. How can we do it? See, you can generally see, if I'm not defining any method, generally, as stated before, you can access the class variable with the class name. That is fine. But here we are talking or discussing about class method. So very simple. I think we have to use a decorator and make it as a class method. And now this will work. See, now this last line is working. Clear? Any doubts? Okay, let me repeat again. See, before actually, I didn't give any class method decorator, nothing I've given. I've created a class student, I've created a class variable, I've created an instance variable, I've created a method to take an average. So what I can do in the sense, with the object, you can call this method. You know that, right? Why? Because you have to assign the class to the object. You know this, and the constructor will take the data. Yes or no? So that is everything is fine. But whenever you wanted the method to call or work with that method, you have to call it with the object. Yes one dot, yes one two dot. You have to call it with that. But here I've created one more method called info, and I wanted to deal with this school name. Okay, so I'm creating a method called info and passing CLS, and I'm returning that CLS dot the school. I need the school name. So now why I'm creating method in the sense, because every student should access that school name with a method. Through the method they should access. So particularly if I just won't get for maybe you can take class name, for example. If I take students dot school, you will get the common university. But how can you check with the individual student, individual object? In that case, I have to create a method. So I've created a method called def info CLS. I passed these class as an argument. Then not argument, sorry, the parameter, that is instead of self, I've given the class. Then I'm returning the class with the school name. But when I was running, I can't able to get the answer. I'm getting the error stating that type error info, it is missing some argument. Why it is not able to? I mean, when I'm trying to get info for the students, info is what? Which is info is nothing but dealing with the school name. When I'm accessing this for, see, I can able to access with the object. It is working. Okay, but so the purpose of creating this info class, info method is to deal with each and every object. That is working fine. But when I wanted to make this method to work with the class also, what shall we do? I was trying to do that. It was not working. It was giving me type error. So if you wanted to convert this method into class method and work with the class variable also, you have to take a decorator called class method. Now this method will work for both the class and also for the object. Now look at for the last line, you'll be getting the answer. Now this info method is working for class name and also for the object name. That's why we are converting the method a normal method into class method. And this is called, sorry, the average method, this is called instance method. Okay, this is called instance method and this is called class method. The next we have a static method. We'll go to that. Before that, I wanted to know everyone is clear till here. Because as I told, self always deals with the object. But this method deals with the class. Yes or no? That's why for the info, I didn't give self. Clear, Muthu? Okay. So class method is Shakila I told you, no? This is class method. This info is nothing but class method. Where this method can be accessed now with the class name or also with the object name. That is called class method. Let me change the method of this as get school, getting school name, so that you will understand. Because one more static method I have to create. Okay, static method I have to create. So before that, are you clear with instance method? Instance method means whatever that normal method you are creating inside the class. So generally, you're taking the attributes and doing something with that. That is instance. Based on the attributes, your method also will be changed with respect to that. That is called instance method. And I explained what is class method. Next, we are going to see about static method. See, very simple. I tell you what static method does. Static method. Let me take a method called info. See, static method again, not respective to instance or class method, it will work. Common to all. Clear? For example, if I'm creating this static method and I'm printing something, like let me take this is a student class in S. Okay, let me take it's something like an ABC module like that. Right? So now what happens in the sense I created a static method and if I'm accessing this info static method with the class name, also it will work. Students dot, let me give info. Info is nothing but static method which I created. See, it is working. Okay, should not leave space here. Yeah, see, it is working. This is a student class in ABC mode. Clear? Clear with this? So we saw types of class and types of variable and types of methods, which is very, very important. Yes, Damodaran, correct. Yes. Yeah. So today what we have discussed, tomorrow we're going to see about inheritance, single inheritance, multiple inheritance, polymorphism, encapsulation, all those things will be covered. Today we saw how to create a class object, yes or no, and how to create a super method or magic method called init, and what is self and constructor, yes or no. And also we saw types of variable, which is nothing but instance and class or static variable, and types of method, instance method, class method, and static method. Clear? So if you're ready with this, further inheritance polymorphism will be very easy because a continuation of this only will be inheritance. Here I have created one class. If you're going for more than one or two class, then I think we have to go for inheritance and polymorphism. Clear? Any doubts, please let me know. That's it for today's session. So tomorrow I'll continue with inheritance, polymorphism, and all those things. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.